I was like, I can't believe I was feeling this on stage tonight, and I really thought I'd battled my way through it. And it started to sneak back, and I was like, what if this is just something that never goes away? What if this is something I always have to fight, you know? And she just looked at me and she was like, then you have to fight, Jen.
Here we go, another riveting edition of CIA, Contagious Influences of America, with the one and only Victoria Robinson.
And I can't even say it. It's David Sams.
You can't say it, jeez.
I couldn't think of anything. The great, amazing David Sams.
Oh, wow. Do we record that?
Can we redo this over?
No, I am
Please.
keeping that. Hey, I got a question for you.
All right, what?
Okay.
Yep.
We have on the podcast today somebody that came in and just blew me away. She was amazing. You know how some people walk in and they're like, whoa.
They've got the it factor.
They got the it factor. She has the it factor.
We're talking about Jen Ledger.
And she is, of course, the drummer and does vocals with the rock band Skillet. And she has a new solo project called LEDGER. How creative is that? Jen Ledger's doing an album called LEDGER.
You know, I was just at a music festival about a week ago, and they were the headliner. And I mean, they have got this massive following.
Skillet has always sort of been pro-female drummers.
Go Skillet.
How unique do you think it is for a rock band to have a female drummer?
Did Barbara Streisand ever play the drums?
Oh, come on.
No, I can't think of anybody.
Well, let me think off the top of my head here. Just thinking here. There was Santana.
Wait, Santana had a female drummer?
Cindy Blackman. That's who it was.
Okay, right now I'm kind of impressed.
By the way, I dated a drummer once.
Oh, so? You dated everything.
No.
How do you know this?
No. I'm telling you.
Seriously, Santa, you're not just making this stuff up.
No, I'm not. And by the way, do you know that Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Carole King, Bill Withers, and Dolly Parton had a female drummer?
I think you are such a cheater.
Bobby Hall.
You're
Bobby
a
Hall.
cheater. I see you. You're on your phone. Show me your phone.
Checking my messages.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. So you don't know any either. Well, we both know Jen Ledger. I think she's 29 years old. She's not married. She's single. She's very sharp. I mean, to me, I would think she's every guy's dream. And she plays drums.
And she operates in high octane. She loves her caffeine.
Well, let's find out how much. Here's our interview with Jen Ledger.
What are you drinking there?
Just coffee with half and half. I've been up since 2 a.m., so I was like, getting myself some caffeine today.
Do you drink lots of that?
Yeah. I probably shouldn't drink as much as I do, but there's a few things in life that help us feel a bit more comfortable, and one of them is coffee.
At one point, I was doing 10 cups of Starbucks a day.
10?
10.
You beat me then. I thought you were going to judge me because I probably have, 3 or 4 easily a day. And I was like, people are always shocked by it. The fact that you've had 10 a day makes me feel a little better.
Well, if I go past 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it definitely impacts my sleep.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm a late night person anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I'll tell you, there's nothing like drinking coffee at 6, 7 o'clock at night. And then you go to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning. You go, why am I not sleeping?
Yeah, you're just kind of tired, but your mind is awake, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So where are you from?
I'm from England, a little city called Coventry. Mm-hmm.
Coventry? Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds adorable.
It's not. It's honestly, if any American is going to visit England, Coventry is not the city you want to visit. Go to London, go anywhere else. It's a little bit, there's even a saying in England that's like sent to Coventry, and it's like where all the rough people get sent because they've caused too much trouble. And so it's definitely not the most famous thing about England, but...
Are you the most famous thing from Coventry?
No, I doubt it. I have no idea. I left there when I was 16 years old, so I feel like I'm more American than I am English. Every time I go home, like for Christmas, I see all my family, and I have people in Coventry asking me where in America I'm from. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think my accent's changed until I go home to England, and then everyone thinks I'm American there. So clearly I'm a bit of a blend by now.
Is Christmas a lot different in the UK than here?
You know, it is a little different. It's more like American Thanksgiving meal is the British Christmas meal, you know, like turkey, gravy, all of that stuff. And then it's less, England is just spiritually kind of dry. There's not many Christians, let's say. Obviously, America has a mass of people. It's just kind of more of an accepted belief. Even if they don't necessarily go to church, a lot of people would say they were Christian in America. Whereas in England, it's like very rare. You don't meet many Christians there. So they do talk about like the nativity scene and that, but it's so far from anything real, or like there's not really like worship in the same way that there is in America, apart from a few wonderful like little churches spotted throughout. But I'd say that was the biggest difference. Like England's just not as spiritual in general.
Why do you think that is?
I actually don't know. I mean, for a start, America was kind of founded on a lot of Christian beliefs. I think England is a hard place to live. It's like harder to make a living there. And the American dream, I do wonder if it has a big effect on like people's positive outlook and like hope feeling. Whereas in England, you very much so kind of stay. It's hard to break out of whatever class you're born into, let's say, and it's not easy to like hit it big time. And I kind of am curious if that mixed with the terrible weather, you know, a lot of broken families, which would be the same here. I just kind of wonder if that makes like a harder life, which just kind of creates a bit of a, I don't want to speak for all of England, but it can feel a little bit more heavy and a little bit more hopeless at times.
Is that why you escaped to the U.S.?
Funny enough, I did always, since I was a young girl, I always felt like I would live in America. I would always watch TV, and anytime there was any show in America, even the fact that you have siding and sidewalks, like your houses look different than English homes. I was always like, one day I'm going to live there. And then turns out it was true. I didn't know that at the time, but here I am now.
So when you were a kid in England, what American shows, TV shows did you watch that you thought, man, I want to be like that, or I want to go there, or I want to feel like that?
It was stuff like, I grew up watching Friends, but it wasn't the New York City thing. It was actually more shows like, I don't know if you remember, it was like a sitcom called Malcolm in the Middle. Mm-hmm. And there was just like these kids, and they were in a neighborhood. And it was like always like the neighborhoods of massive roads and huge sidewalks and these big old houses, which in America, you'd never say they were big houses, but compared to English homes, you know, they're all side by side and tiny brick homes. I always just was like fascinated by it and thought it was so cool. And I always wanted to know what a PB&J was. And I've learned it all now, and I love it. I love America.
So what's it like being 16 and I'm assuming you didn't get on the boat and come over with the Mayflower, right? I mean,
No, I didn't.
What happens when you just decide to pick up at 16 and move to the U.S.? How does that happen?
You know what? Now I look back, it's so clearly all the Lord. But at the time, I didn't know that. I played drums, and when I was in England growing up, I basically learned the drums because I'm the youngest of 4, and my 2 oldest brothers, I thought they were super cool, and I got like copied everything they did. So I got really good at sports, and I learned the drums basically to impress them. And when I was about 13, my older brother got offered a scholarship through a random American connection friend. It was this music course in Kenosha, Wisconsin that desperately needed drummers. They had all of the other musicians there, but they were in need of drummers because they basically train you in how to play in a worship team. And at that point, my family and I, we did go to an Anglican church on Sundays, but we knew nothing about the gospel. We knew about Noah, and we knew that Jesus loved us, but I don't think we really had any understanding further than that. So my brother got offered this scholarship, thought, oh my gosh, I get to be a rock star in America. I'm totally going to go do this music course. And they didn't really tell him what he was getting into. So my brother comes to America and he basically gets radically born again, filled with the Spirit, calling us all, telling us we've been missing the point our whole lives. Jesus is real. You can actually know him. You can hear his voice. He was just a different person on the phone. It kind of honestly weirded me out. He was telling me, like, my brother was kind of a bit of a party boy, let's say, before he went. And he was telling me how he doesn't want to date or kiss another girl until he knows it's the woman he's going to marry. And from Coventry, England, I was like, what's happened to my brother? He's turned into the biggest weirdo freak. I just thought it was so strange. And he kept preaching the gospel to me. And honestly, he seemed so weird to me now. I was like, I want nothing. I don't know what is going on with this guy. I thought it was so weird. But he came back completely transformed. Then my other older brother went to America too, got completely born again. They just came back like different people. I remember them like tearing down the posters from their walls because it was just like a ton of, hot girls on their walls, and they just came back, ripped it all down. Both my parents ended up getting born again. And at the age of 16, it was basically... My mum really encouraged me to come do the school. It's the Kenosha school too, because she'd seen such a massive transformation in my brothers, and they had come to know the Lord. And I basically sort of said one Sunday, she dragged me to church, and I couldn't get the Kenosha School of Worship out of my head. And I really felt like, I wonder if this is God or something, And I told my mum, and she was like, okay. Next thing I know, I had a scholarship to the school, and my mom's church was offering to help fund me to go. So long story short, sorry, I know that's a lot of detail, but I came to America, and it was like I did just finally give my life to Jesus. And I think maybe it was a part of God's plan for me to kind of let go of everything I had in my life. And it was like, I'd known things about him, but never understood the gospel. And it was like the beginning of my real walk with him when I came here. And did the school for 10 months, fell in love with Jesus. I quit the drums because I decided I hated performing. And I was around other players that were just so fantastic that it made me feel really insecure. And I came back to do the second year in America, and I planned to go back to Coventry and become a hairdresser. That was my goal. And I was finishing out the second year. I'd started to learn the bass. I was like done with the drums. And that was when I was 17 years old, and I got a text from one of my best friends saying, hey, Skillet's drummer's leaving. Is there any chance you'd want to audition for them? And my best friend is Corey Cooper's sister. Corey Cooper's the guitar player for Skillet. And at first I said, no way. I was like, the idea of performing in front of people honestly made me want to die. I would get nervous playing for 200 people at church on Sunday. I was just so convinced that everyone around me was better at it than I am. And I was just convinced I wasn't cut out for it. So I said no. But I was praying about it, and I really felt like God was telling me, you need to go try out for this band. And I stepped into it kind of like thinking this is an act of obedience. But I was so sure that I had no chance of getting it that I was like, God's probably going to teach me some character thing. Like he's going to teach me humility or teach me some life lesson through this humiliating audition that we all know I'm not going to get, I was so sure of it. And I even... like the teachers at the school were telling me, hey, this is really a long shot. They're professional. At this point, they're already touring the world. I was 17, been playing for 4 years. It was such a long shot. And John Cooper himself, the singer of Skillet, even called me, and he was like, just so you know, we've already auditioned some session musicians in Chicago, and I just kind of want you to know there's not really a big chance of you getting this, but I'd still love to give you a shot. My wife would love to have a female drummer. So basically, I'm kind of letting you try out to make her happy. But realistically, we're looking for a professional. So I just didn't want you to get your hopes up. So I was like, okay, that's totally fine. I'm sure God's just going to teach me something anyway. I'm doing this as an act of faith because drums terrify me. And so I go to the audition, and I remember trying to perform my solo for my friends before the band arrived. And I was so nervous. I couldn't hold my sticks and I just couldn't play the solo for them. I could do it fine in practice, couldn't do it when they were there. And I remember just after they left feeling really discouraged. So I just like went into a side room and like spent some time praying, and I felt like God spoke to me about Isaiah 41, and it's where he says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. I will hold you by your right hand and I will make you strong." And I just felt peaceful, no matter what was going to happen. So then the band comes in and I audition for them, and it's apparently the best I've ever played in my whole life. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, I played so good. Even I'm shocked by it, you know? And John Cooper's like, oh, wow, you know, that was, you know, everyone was kind of surprised, me included. And it came to the interview following the audition, and he was asking me questions about myself. And I honestly couldn't have done a worse job interviewing. I was just basically like, honestly, I don't really like the drums. They make me really nervous. I'll probably never play again if I don't get into this band. And the real reason is I kind of feel like God's called me to at least try. And I feel like I'm here out of obedience to him, but I'd actually quit. And I just said everything you should never say to a band that you're auditioning for. And he was like, well, okay, then what are you doing next week? Because we're going to maybe have second auditions. And I was like, well, I'm just busy this one night because it's my birthday, but I'm free the whole rest of the time. And he's like, oh, you're going to be 22? And I was like, no, I'm going to be 18. And his jaw just like dropped. And he's like, well, how long you been playing? And I was like, 4 years. And he was like, if I'd have known any of this, I would never have let you audition. And I was like, oh, you know, I didn't really think much of it at the time. And then I got a call a couple of days later, and they had me come over to their house, and they basically said, we're going with you. We're going to buy you a drum kit. We're going to buy you all your gear. And I was so stunned that I kind of kept thinking they were saying, we're going to buy you a drum kit for your second audition. Like, I was like, man, these guys are so rich, you know? And it was like, it honestly took me a little while to realize they were saying, we've chosen you to be our drummer. And they were basically like, we appreciate your heart and your honesty, and we feel like faith to have you be our drummer. And it was my first show ever with Skillet was, I went from 200 people church on a Sunday to 16,000 people at Winter Jam. That was the first tour I ever did with them. And it was the same story again, where in sound check, I've never done a sound check. I don't even know what a sound check is. They're having to teach me what that means. And I was so nervous in that massive empty arena that I was just really struggling to play with the click. I was shaking again, and that whole thing of just fear crippling me. And the band came and laid hands on me before we went on that night and just prayed over me. And I went and played that night, and it was like I sat down and I just knew the peace of God helping me. And that it's kind of just been a journey of that ever since. I've been playing with Skillet now for 12 years. And honestly, every time I get on the drums, I still feel like I just know his help, because I don't feel any stronger. It's not like I feel like I've all of a sudden got sick chops or something. It's more that I've just known his grace covering me and helping me. And I can't believe he's let me do this all over the world and used the very thing I thought was like unusable about me. I thought I was so bad at this. And it's been the very thing he's used to like touch people's lives and glorify himself. And it's just such a great example of him using our weaknesses and just his strength shining through. All these people think I'm this wicked drummer now. And I'm like, it's all him. Honestly, he has made a way, because I wanted to be a hairdresser, and everything about my job scared me to death. And now here I am. And it's just been kind of an adventure that he's led me on.
So what was the thing that you learned about yourself? It sounds to me like you were in a place of doubt, a place of fear, a place of not being good enough. Mm-hmm. So what did you learn about that whole experience?
The main thing I've learned that I still continue to relearn, though, it's like I always think I've grasped it, but then I come face to face with it yet again, is God chooses like the weak to shame the strong. He chooses the fool to shame the wise, and he chooses the things that are not, and he calls them into being. And that's been kind of like a scripture that's carried me through, because I've noticed that when I think naturally and when I compare, like look at practical life, you know, you can't do this, or you get nervous before you go on stage still. And that's so like pathetic for a professional. Do you know what I mean? You know, when I look at things naturally, it's like, it's Caleb and Joshua, I think, when they go to, it's not Joshua, Caleb and whoever else goes to spy out the land, and they see the group of them, the majority of them see giants, whereas like Caleb sees that it is the land God has given them. And I feel like it's an example for me that I have to remember that when I look in natural terms, they do look like giants, and it does look too scary for me. It looks too impossible to beat. But when I rest in the fact that if this is God, if God's placed me here, if he, you know, if his very breath is life, and he says to me, you are brave, you are strong, you're able, because if he speaks that over me, it actually is the truth. Because what he says over me is actually more truthful than any thought I could have or any natural conclusions I make from looking at the practical world. Like, what he speaks lasts longer than this earth itself, you know? And the thing that I continue to learn over and over again is the fight between those two thinkings. Like, when I look, what do I see? Am I looking with eyes of faith, or am I looking with eyes of fear? And you don't realize you're doing it. Sometimes you think you're just being realistic, you know what I mean? And I'm not living with my head in the clouds, but it's actually easy for the enemy to rob you of peace and joy because you think you're looking realistically. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's the main thing I have learned, because the very things I thought I could never do that has basically been everything he's called me to. And, you know, I play drumming in Skillet, you know, I play really kind of very passionately, but I don't have like crazy technique. I'm not like a technical drummer. It's very passionate, heart and soul. And that's something that I thought, well, all I can do is this, so I could never be a drummer. I don't have all the technical chops. And then the very thing God has used for me to connect to people has been the fact that I play with my heart and soul, and I'm not very technical. And it's been the very thing that people have loved about my playing. And like, I just love how God is like, whatever you think, do you think I've not already thought this through? And he can turn any weakness into strength. Do you know what I mean? He can just choose whatever it is about you think is unusable or inadequate, like the loaves and the fish that you're like, this will never feed this amount of people. He says, bring it to me, because in my hands, it's something else. It feeds 5,000 easily with more to spare, you know? And I just love how when we rest in the fact that in his hands, it can be anything. Do you know what I mean? In his hands, what is just 5 loaves and 2 fish becomes 5,000. That's what I keep choosing and relearning to rest and walk in that side. Obviously, I'm still diligent and I still work hard at my craft and do what I can, but he has to do the rest, because I can't magically make myself a more talented drummer. I've got what I've got and I work with that. He does the rest, you know, and I hope that makes sense.
If it doesn't work out, you could always go home and be a hairdresser.
Exactly. Right. And I know I'm good at hair. Like, even when I was a teenager, I would give girls haircuts in the lunch break, and they would buy me a sandwich and I'd cut their hair.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I was like, I'm good at this.
When was the first time that you played drums?
I was like about 12. When I basically would just sneak into my brother's room and take their sticks and play on their kit. And then I had lessons from about 13 to 16.
When you did lessons, did you do those at home?
They were all in Coventry, yeah. It was like this, there's basically like an American Tide small school randomly in Coventry, England. Like, it's honestly all the Lord. The connections, because it's the guy that runs this random school called Nexus in Coventry, England. It's a music school. He was connected to the Kenosha. And the Kenosha School of Worship has like 20 students a year. It's not like this massive thing. So the fact that these people in England got connected with this 20 student program in Kenosha, Wisconsin is so crazy. But it was honestly, now I look back, I'm like, it's so clearly God tying things together you could never imagine, but he made it all happen.
Now, can you learn to play the drums at any age?
I think so. I know that like they say with violin and stuff that you can't learn past the age of 10, like your body like forms different, blah, 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 blah. Drums now, I think you can absolutely learn them. Like, especially if you learn the way I play, which is like, I may not have all the technique completely down, but I can rock out, and yes, you can absolutely learn the drums at any age.
You should do one of those online training courses. Have you seen the Phil Kagi, his guitar course that's on? Oh, it's pretty cool.
Is it awesome?
Oh,
like you can
so
actually
awesome.
teach yourself kind of a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
I can't imagine anybody playing like Phil, but it's amazing what you can learn online now, isn't it?
I could teach people how to like headbang and have like long hair and impress everybody. Yeah. Like,
what kind of performance these days still freaks you out, makes you nervous?
whenever we do a new tour, and it's like Skillet's unique because we're in between the Christian market and the active rock mainstream market. So sometimes when we switch tours, there's just a big culture shock. Like, you couldn't get more different crowds. Like, one is, drunk people there to just have the time of their life and not remember any of it the next morning. And then there's the Christian crowds, which are a little more conservative, obviously. And I think sometimes switching between, we always do the same show. And John Cooper always says, always shares his heart, always talks about Jesus, no matter what crowd we're in front of. But sometimes it's like we go to Europe and all of a sudden we're playing one of the biggest rock festivals in the world before Iron Maiden. And I just when we're walking out and it's that scale, and it's also being broadcast onto TV too, and everything always sounds worse when you hear it through TV. That stuff just always gets my heart right. Even though we've been playing the same set, even if I'm practiced and I'm ready, I think it can just be a little intimidating, and that stuff will still I have to fight the nerves really hard even now.
Is it difficult being in the middle like that between the mainstream audience and the Christian audience? I mean, that's going to be like playing ping pong.
It does feel like that at times, but I feel really happy to do it. It can be a culture shock for sure, and sometimes you do have to switch your mind a little. But I love being in the Christian market because you're next to all these other artists that believe the same thing as you. And there's just a camaraderie and a freedom in what you say and who you are. What's funny is that sometimes the Christian market fans are a little scared of us because we are so rock and roll. And that, it's always a shame when you're looking out in the crowd and you can see a few faces that just don't know what to do with Skillet because we're not Chris Tomlin and we're not on an acoustic guitar. They're so there's that side of it that can be kind of entertaining, honestly. but then on the other hand, there's such a lovely freedom on there. But then on the other hand, when we go into these mainstream rock festivals or tours, these crowds are the people that have often actually been burned by church, which you don't think about that until later on in the tour, and we get to have some great conversations. But also it's people that are often they've ran as far away from anything holy or wholesome as they can. They just want to sell it. They just ran from it into the darkest places, and it feels dark. I can't deny that in any way. But there's something so special about stepping on stage with my team, and they're all we all keep each other accountable. We keep each other really safe. We have very clear boundaries. We know when we're going into these places how dangerous it is, and we are there to minister and be a light. And when we go on stage in these places where everyone has ran where they think the darkest of dark could be, I just feel the Lord. I feel the Holy Spirit on us. I feel his presence. And I am always reminded of his faithfulness, that he would craft us as a team to reach into the places where people think, that's too dark, this is too far gone. And he would just be like, there's nothing too far gone for me. There is no place too dark that I cannot reach. And there's such a cool feeling to be a part of a team that we go on stage and sing about hope and sing about, maybe we're not always overtly saying Jesus's name, but we're there to sort of be a light in the darkness. And it really gives me a sense of purpose. Like when we're there, I feel his presence, and it's some of the strongest times I've ever felt him with me. And so I know a lot of people misunderstand Skillet, and we've had a lot of Christians say they wouldn't support us because they found out we've gone on tour with Papa Roach or a mainstream act. But I would just encourage all of those people, like, it may feel a little scary and a little dangerous, but it's really like the faithfulness of our God that no one is too far gone and there is no place that he cannot reach. Like, Skillet is a powerful weapon in his hand in those places, and we've seen a lot of people come to know him through these random dark rock festivals, and it's a very precious thing to be a part of that. I feel honestly really honored that God would allow me to be in that team.
Which group do you find to be most judgmental? Christians or the mainstream people who think you're a bunch of Jesus people on stage?
Sadly, the Christians are a lot harder on us than the mainstream. I think a lot of mainstream rock people are freaked out by us at first. They don't like the idea of being on tour with a Christian band. But we've even had certain tours not want us on, or don't be near us, don't be praying for us. It's funny comments like that. But all it takes is 1 week on tour of us being friends with them and just being kind. It's funny how much just being friendly and kind disarms that. I think they're so afraid of you preaching at them, and they think you're going to judge them, and they think there's a self-righteous air that you're going to come in and tell them all that they sin. And I don't know what they expect from Christians, but all it takes is a week of being friendly and it completely goes away. And we end up making incredible friendships and having great talks. And it always is them asking. All we do is show up on tour. John and Corey are married with children. The kids are the sweetest kids in the whole world. They're always just caring people, And by 3-4 weeks into tour, we've always got someone knocking on the bus, like, what's this Jesus thing about? I used to go to church, but, it always happens. Whereas in the Christian market, that can't. Obviously, we've got incredible supporters and incredible fans there. But we also have a lot of people that are like, you can't be Christian because you wear black and you have fire and it looks like hell and your lyrics aren't Christian enough because you're wolves in sheep's clothing. All the classics. So it can kind of go either way. But I like it because you know what? Jesus was never about the way you look on the outward, he was all about the heart. And I know my band, and you couldn't get more radical believers. So if we're riling up people and ruffling feathers because we don't look the way you want and we have tattoos and whatever, I kind of love it, even though it can be like a bummer at times. It can be discouraging at moments. At the same time, I'm like, Jesus hated self-righteousness more than you'll notice the times he always flips out in the Bible is on the people that, the Pharisees and the religious and the law keepers. He hated self-righteousness more than he did the sinner. And so I'm like, if we're shaking up that and bringing a mirror to that, that's not a bad thing, even though it can be discouraging at times.
John and Corey are married.
Yep.
What about you? What's your relationship status?
I'm single. I've been single since I became a Christian, actually. No, I would like to be married. I just haven't really met anyone. And I'm basically touring. Not only am I in Skillet now, but I started my own solo project called LEDGER, and that came out last year. So now, I was already full-time touring busy. Now I'm double full-time touring busy. So I just trust that God will bring someone at the right time. And until then, maybe it's just better that I'm single because I do feel really called to this music, and I'm happy to not be distracted. But I would love for him to bring someone along at the right time too.
So paint the picture. Who's the right one?
People will be really shocked by this, but I really don't like musicians. I meet a lot of musicians, and sadly they've painted themselves into a bad picture for me. I'm just like, I can't handle up and down moodiness. I can't handle inconsistency. Like, those are things that just like kill me and exhaust me. And musicians tend to be more emotional types and the artistic types of people, which is why I find that a bit hard, because they tend to be moodier. And so I think I'd probably like someone a lot preppier than expected, like someone that I would love to meet, a guy that just really loves Jesus and has a job and doesn't live in his parents' basement. It's apparently really rare. I haven't met one in 12 years. So so I guess I'm a millennial. I'm 29. And I always hear people on the news complaining about millennials living in basements and not wanting to get real jobs. And I'm like, well, if my dating life is a picture of it, apparently it's spot on and dead true, because I have not met a guy that can, 1, loves Jesus, 2, has a job, doesn't live in his parents' basement, 3, can look me in the eye and just say, hello, Jen. That's apparently rare too, because apparently I'm very intimidating, so no one can talk to me. And I'm so freaking friendly that I find it really annoying, but like, I've been told, well, no one approaches you because you're intimidating. And I'm like, but I'm so friendly to everyone. If you can't say hi to me, that's a bad start. So it's kind of kept my path really clear for now. And God will have to make it clear when it's the right one.
For all you guys listening right now, you can just write your comments below, attach your bio.
Send some resumes. You can fish through them. You know what I'm looking for now.
There you go. So now that you're doing this solo thing, do you sometimes open for Skillet?
Yes, actually, yeah. So it came out last year, and the first tour I ever did, we launched and like announced, and it was all in April, and I went on tour immediately with Skillet for King and Country, and LEDGER is the name of my project. So I would open up the night, and then for King and Country would play, and then I would close the night with Skillet. And just this summer too, these last few weeks, I'm opening the same festivals that I'm closing with Skillet too. So I'm going to bed just wrecked tired, but it's a ton of fun, and I'm really enjoying getting to do both projects.
Where do you hope to take this solo career? What's your vision?
My vision would be, really, it was about 6 years ago. I felt like, yet again, I was touring like the world with Skillet and meeting all these people, even in different countries that don't even know the language, and like kind of coming face to face with the fact that God really uses music to save people's lives and to touch them. The amount of people we've met that said they were going to kill themselves, or our music helped, like God touched them and they are off drugs now and they've been clean ever since, and things like that. I felt really stirred by the power of music. And then at the same time, I was meeting a ton of young girls that were learning drums because of me. And then it sounds really goofy, but they were changing their hair color to copy me. And I felt like really humbled that God would give me such a platform of influence. And it was around that time I kind of felt stirred and challenged, like, how can I use this platform even more, be even more vocal about my faith, be clearer what I'm about. And I felt like writing music and writing my own songs would be just a great way to share my heart more. While people are listening, I'm only going to have a small window where people care. So why not use this window to, like, in every avenue I can, you know? And so I kind of asked the Coopers if they would take me under their wing and train me as a songwriter. And they helped me build my project. They trained me for a couple of years. We wrote together a lot. And then it wasn't until 6 years later that the project actually came out. And I really just hope that my main vision is I just want to be used by God. I see the media, whether it's Instagram, social media, or reality TV, there's just so many like really loud voices to our young people now that are really dangerous. It's basically, if you are not pretty or successful or famous or rich, like, what's the point? You know what I mean? There's just such a loud voice of that now that I just feel really challenged. Like, God, if I can be of use here, pull me in. And that's kind of why I did the Ledger project, to speak about real things, but also be a voice of hope and light to young girls and to young people that are listening when they have so many other loud voices competing for their attention.
Here, I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm going to put you on camera here, okay?
Yeah.
Just record it here. All right. Okay, we are rolling now. All right, Jen, I just have the big question.
I'm nervous.
How did you choose that hair color?
Trial and error. I've tried so many, and then it kind of is, this is like 3 colors mixed into one, and it faded out, and I wish I had a more genius answer, but basically I saw that it was on trend and I liked it, and I thought that's the one for me. So
Do you change it up often, or yeah?
Yes. I mean, I actually just saw a photo of me on your wall from when I was here with Skillet for Rise, and it's bright red. I wanted to be a hairdresser. This is my only outlet. I'm in a band. I can do whatever color I want. It's allowed. So I'll probably go through, 20 more in my lifetime. Why not?
Tell me what it is about being 29, right?
Yep.
In today's world. How do you feel?
So what's good about it and what's bad about it?
Yeah.
Man, that's a good question. I've never really thought about this.
Well, you won't have to think about it next year because you'll be 30.
I know. And then I'll be like, oh my gosh, this happened to me finally. I do love technology. Like, I'm not a techie person, but all of my family still lives in England. I left and no one came with me. So my brothers and sister have all started, they're married with having children now, and my parents are still in England. So the fact that I have FaceTime and Messenger and texting, and even though I live in a completely different continent to them, I do really love that I never actually feel that far from them. And I know that even when I moved to America when I was 16, I had to go to a special landline phone where they had cheaper rates just to call my mom. So things have just massively advanced in a way that's benefited me greatly for living here on my own. And then the double-edged sword is that social media, though I think it can be really great, I think it has been really damaging to my generation and the younger generation especially. I think I'm no scientist, and these are just only my own thoughts, but I do think that it's massively played into anxiety, depression. I just think that in some ways it's been really bad for us too, even though there's a great side of it. So that's the one thing that kind of sucks about this time. And I do wonder, 20 years down the road, if we'll be able to kind of see the clear effects that social media has had on us.
Do you watch your social media? Do you get freaked out by it, or do you ignore it?
No, I see it as a platform. I love that God has given me another avenue to just look different, be countercultural. Obviously, I'm in a band, so some of it's just band posts, band promotion. It's a great way to get music out. But I actually, sounds really silly, I love to draw, I love to sketch. And so sometimes I'll just do a post where I'll post a piece of artwork that I've done. And then I can basically talk about why I drew it, which is always to do with the Lord, And I kind of see it as a tool I can use to share my faith or share my heart. But yeah, it is just a weird season and a weird time too. I don't read all the comments people say.
With everything you've got going and all the success you have and all the opportunities you have, what still freaks you out?
I love the scripture where it says, well done, good and faithful servant. The thing that's made me afraid is the parable of the talents, where, the one guy buried his talents in the ground, and the master was like, what have you done? You squandered what I gave you, or whatever. My greatest fear in life would be, not having the faith to do what God put before me, letting fear steal. If I stood before him and he'd given me talents and I squandered them, or if I stood before him and I just didn't have the faith, but I was afraid when he asked me to do something, because I know myself, and I know I do always have to wrestle with those same thoughts. I still, even when it came to the LEDGER project, it was I started to struggle with anxiety, and I started to struggle with fear in a way I never had. And I really had to wrestle through that. And it made me feel defeated because I thought, why would I still be fighting the same battle this many years? Like, what if this is just something that never goes away for me? And I remember talking to Corey Cooper from Skillet about it one night because I'd started to panic on stage. And when I panic or start to feel afraid, I feel defeated because I want to be a woman of faith. And I feel like I'm kind of failing, if that makes sense. So, and I kind of said to Cora, I was like, I can't believe I was feeling this on stage tonight. And I really thought I'd battled my way through it and really had the victory like just a year ago. I really thought I'd dealt with the root of the issue once and for all, and it started to sneak back. And I was like, what if this is just something that never goes away? What if this is something I always have to fight, you know? And she just looked at me and she was like, then you have to fight, Jan. You fight while there's breath in your lungs and until the day that you die. You never stop fighting, and you just don't let fear rob you of your own life. And I actually found that really freeing because I think as Christians, we can feel a sense of shame when we come back face to face with something we've battled before. Like, oh, I should have dealt with that already, and it snuck its head back up. And you feel really defeated in your walk. Like, have I not grown, you know? And that's what I was feeling. Have I not grown at all? And actually, no, it's just that life is a battle. Life is a battle until we make it to the other side, and there's no pain, there's no fear, there's no tears, there's no, you know, like, but we're not there yet. And right now there's spiritual warfare. There's an enemy that wants to steal, kill, and destroy you, you know? And it just, I think that there was a freedom for me knowing I'm in a battle, and maybe this is something I fight 2 more times in life, but maybe this is something I fight 100 more times. And I'm not going to let it defeat me just because I had to fight it more times. I'm just going to get better at fighting and see myself as a warrior. You know what I mean? I'm going to see myself as, right now, I am in a battle, and he's called us to fight. He tells us, you know, to put on the armor of God. And that's not for no reason, you know. Why would he have you in armor if there wasn't a battle you were heading into? So, I'd say that is the thing that, you know, if I'm really tired or stressed, it's the fear side of things that I realize, like, Lord, please don't ever let that rob me of what you've put before me. And please don't ever let my weaknesses and the bad side of Jen, please don't. I just pray that you'll give me the willpower and the boldness and the faith to stand before you one day and know that I never buried the talents or never buried what you put before me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I needed to hear that today. That's good stuff. And it's good to share that and let others know that you don't have it all together.
No way. So far from it. In fact, like, something I'm like really proud of is I'm like, if people knew me, they'd, you know, there's so many people that could perform better than me. They just feel like they're made for it. And I am not like that at all. I'm just like, I'd be fine to never be on stage. It's just, I remember the first time doing Skillet, the first time doing Ledger, the first time singing out front, my knees knocked every time, you know? And I think it's like Elizabeth Elliot or someone like that has a quote about sometimes the fear doesn't go away and you just have to do it afraid. You know what I mean? And I've known, like, stepping out in obedience times, God helping me. And I love that it is in our weaknesses that he is strong. You know, I think the quicker that you realize he didn't pick you because you're the best, he picked you because he wants to use you and he'll do the rest. Like, David was the shortest and weakest of his brothers. His dad didn't even invite him to the anointing ceremony. Moses couldn't speak. He had a stutter, and he calls him to, like, lead the nation of Israel. It's always like the weak people he chooses because he loves to display his strength and display his glory through your weaknesses. So the quicker you realize your weaknesses are a massive opportunity for him to shine, the quicker you feel grateful for them. Like, you can almost rejoice in the fact, I'm not perfect, but God is everything that I am not, and he has everything that I don't have. And I think that that's just been, whenever I rest in that side of things, I'm free to move. And, you know, I always think of myself as like the bread and the fish that's brought in Jesus's hands. And it's like, yeah, it's not enough, but with him it is, you know, with him, everything changes, you know. And if the maker of the universe, that when he speaks, things simply are. If he is speaking this over you, things will change, and what he says is strong, and I thought I was the worst drummer in the world, and here I am 12 years later after touring the world, and it's because he said this over me, and it's all his doing,
Jen, thank you for joining me today. And I just want to reiterate, guys, she's looking for your resumes. Where can those be sent?
Send them to John and Corey or to you. Now you know what's going on. My management. Anyway,
you're putting it on my shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, you're the one that brought it up, so I feel like you should be the one fishing through them, honestly. You can do the grunt work, and then you can forward the good ones to John and Corey, and then if they make it to me,
then you'll know. Then I'll get blamed.
It was a strong resume. Have a job, please. Love Jesus. And don't live in your parents' basement. And be able to look a woman in the eye and say, hello, how are you? That goes a long way, guys. Just throwing it out there.
There you got it. So wasn't it amazing when she revealed the whole thing about fear and overcoming stage fright?
That's the one thing about when people talk about fear. They think everyone can see it, but we're very good at covering it up. Fear is crippling.
Have you had issues with that?
With fear?
Yeah.
Everybody has fear issues, whether it's standing up in front of a room and speaking, selling your product, which I think that speaking is worse than death, or way up there with the fear of death, fear of divorce, fear of public speaking, all of those things. But my fears would probably be that I failed as a mom. That would have been one of my greatest fears when my girls were growing up, is that I would mess them up, which probably did, because we all mess somebody up. We don't mean to, but we just do. So everybody's fear is different, but it's their fear.
I've battled with fear throughout my life. I think I overcame it last year when I got up on the karaoke stage. Are
you serious? No, you were scared to get on the karaoke stage?
No. Do you know that when I was in high school and shortly thereafter, I used to star in musicals like crazy? I mean, I was really into it. Then all of a sudden, I became the Wizard of Oz. I was the guy behind the screen.
Right, with your work.
With my work and television, all that.
So you got out of the habit of being in front of the crowd.
I got out of the habit, and I was working with others in front. And then last summer, the program director of our station in Atlanta got me to come down and spend the weekend at his place and took me on his boat to the boathouse. And, it was Georgia, so I had a couple of those drinks in the little red cups, And the next thing you know is I'm on the karaoke stage.
That's the first time you had done that in a long time?
That was the first time. I was 15.
So were you afraid that you wouldn't sing as well as you did in your high school plays? Or you wouldn't get the applause?
I just felt weird. I just was scared to get up there, I guess. So
Gosh,
I
now
didn't do
you
it.
Can't get you off.
Well, that's the thing. Once you got me up there, now you can't get me off. You're a
hogger. You're a song hogger when we do karaoke nights. You are a song hogger, David Sams.
Wait, how'd you say the hogger?
Every time I turn around, it's like, and I even see it in the DJ's face. Oh yeah, it's David again.
Yeah, but she likes me. She has a fondness.
You're a legend in your own mind.
Of course, I do give her a tip for $20 each time she puts me in front of everybody else.
I know you do. With each song, it probably costs you $200 every time we go to karaoke.
Speaking of the karaoke thing, we've got to organize a karaoke night and invite everybody who's listening to us.
Yes, for sure. And it'll be here in Nashville, Tennessee, Cool Springs area. So you'll have to come from out of town. It's worth it. It is a great night.
It's in a bowling alley, King's Bowl.
Yeah, but it has its own room. Its own special room.
And it's a really cool room.
It's a very cool room. It's all karaoke.
Chandeliers and everything.
Yeah, it's like you really feel like you are a nightclub singer.
And you can see me and
see me.
The two of us.
Yeah.
On stage together.
Tried that duet.
We did Islands in the Stream.
Got tricked into that song. That will never happen again. Yeah. Well, now wait. I said if you get Gloria Gaynor to show up for our karaoke night and she sings I Will Survive with me as her doo-wop girl background, if she just lets me hold her mic while she sings it, then I will humiliate myself and sing Islands in the Stream with you one more time.
Okay, you're on. I'm going to get her there. Okay. I am going to work on that.
You want to sing that bad?
Hey, you know what? First of all, I love Gloria. All right.
Okay, good.
I want her there.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
I do
That would
too.
just be so awesome.
And second of all, I would sing Islands in the String. I would sing there's probably even worse songs than that. I will sing them if you get Gloria Gaynor.
You're on. So let's get that on the books. We'll put that on Facebook and we'll put that on our website when we're going to do that. And let's get a crowd of maybe 100 people out there.
Easy.
And
And
Victoria
it has
will
to
buy
all
the
be
drinks.
70s music.
70s?
You can only
A
sing
70s night.
70s or 80s music. How
Okay.
about that?
All right.
I've already got my list because you never know when I'm going to have some random person say, hey, want to go do karaoke? And I'll forget the song. So I have them literally, I have a list in my iPhone.
I know that. Let's plan on doing that in, just so that everybody can plan for it. Because I know there'll be people that want to come from out of state.
Sure. How about October? Sometime in October.
Let's say not around Halloween because everybody wants to be home with the kids.
Yeah,
but
sure. No.
Sometime mid-October to mid-November. How's that?
Sounds good to me. Now listen to this though, David.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm practicing. It's going to take me a few months.
I thought you were-
It's going to take me a few months.
I thought that was hog calling.
Yeah, you won't want to miss it. And we're so glad you didn't miss this podcast interview with Jennifer. And make sure you check out her new album, Ledger.
Ledger.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so remember that. We are going to, we're going to have a special guest right here in this studio.
We are.
Yes, we are. And you are going to be surprised. Look, you may have to cancel plans because
If it's who I think it is, I'll cancel my life. Thanks again for listening. And make sure that you go rate our podcast. Keep listening. Listen on iHeart, wherever you get your podcast. You can hear us. And we really appreciate it. We appreciate this little following that we've got. And we know that you're just as interested in our guests as we are.
And you're going to be interested in that one guest a lot, I guarantee it. This has been CIA Contagious Influencers of America. I'm David Sands.
And I'm Victoria Robinson.
Go out there and live that life in living color because it sure is a lot more interesting, a lot more fun than living it in black and white. Bye-bye.